so that we have that available.
Still muted. Okay, good.
Bueno.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone who is here today with us. This is our virtual meeting of really a community assessment of what is out there, what are needs that the community is feeling in terms of recovering from COVID-19. You all know that every jurisdiction, school districts and the like have received funding out of the American Rescue Plan Act. We here in Oceanside have also received those funds. And there was some discussion early on about the programming of those monies and opportunities really to address more basic needs that people were feeling outside of necessarily economic development activities. But let's get down to the basics. Let's get down to food. Let's get down to housing and wanting to know and hear more. And so we've kind of taken a step back, and we're here today as we have been, we held 3 other meetings in person to talk with the community so you all could let us know, what are you feeling? What do you feel are the needs that either you yourself, a neighbor, a family member, maybe at church, you've heard people talking about that we could use these funds for. Michael Vargas is here with us, but with Lead by Impact. He's going to facilitate a discussion with you all to let you know what can ARPA funds, and that's what we call this as ARPA, technical term there. What can we use these funds for from a statutory requirement, and to help lead that discussion and bring it back to your own daily lives and what that means for you all. We hope that by the end of all of our conversations in this meeting, in our in-person meetings, that we'll put together a report. We'll bring that back to council, and that document can then lead the council in conversations about the future of the ARPA funds and what we should be doing. And it can also lead to more discussions. We may get, who knows, by the end of this year, we may get another pot of money. Or we may decide that, hey, we need to take a look at our recreational programming needs. We'll be doing that at John Landis as John Landis comes on board. So it'll help guide some of the future policies that may come later down the road and not just related to ARPA. So this is good information to have. It's good to hear from the community about your needs, to have that conversation, to touch bases, because everything that we do, we are here in service of our community and want to make sure that we are doing exactly that. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Michael Vargas, and he's going to start the discussion with you all. And also, please feel free that conversation isn't just limited. We've got one more community meeting. You can always contact me by email or by telephone and let me know what your thoughts are. If you didn't get them in today, that you still have opportunities to touch bases with city staff. So thank you again for taking the time out of your day, and hope to have a very lively discussion with you all in the next hour and a half. Thank you.
Thank you, Leilani, for setting this up and letting people know. And again, thank you everybody for being here. So today we're going to go through different elements of this workshop, which I will share in just a second. But it's really, the heart of this is about your experience of COVID, your experience in Oceanside, and what you, your family members, the people in your life, the people you care about, where do you see the funds can help them, for the people who've been affected in your life regarding COVID? Okay, so I want you to continually keep that in mind as we go through this workshop. And so what I'll do here now is go ahead and share the screen. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see the screen? Thumbs up. Hold on one second. Yeah, can I get a thumbs up? Can anyone see? Thumbs? Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so this is what we're here for, community needs assessment. Now, first things first, we also have Spanish interpretation available. So on the bottom, you'll see a little world button. What I'd like you to do is go ahead and click on that, and you can click English or Spanish. And we have two interpreters today, Jesus and Brenda. So I'll let them kind of speak a little bit more on that and making sure people who are here who need Spanish can also be a part of the conversation. So Jesus. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, so now going on in a little bit about different ways to engage during this workshop. So there'll be moments where people can share and things like that. So you get the chance to, at certain points throughout this workshop, to share your voice. And so on the bottom left button, there's going to be a little microphone, and you can click on that to unmute, and that would allow you to easily talk. Also, people can share via the chat. So some people don't feel as comfortable talking, and so you can actually open up the chat and type and be able to go back and forth. And then also you can message everyone, or if you want to keep a little bit more private, you could click on that and message me directly, so it doesn't go out to the whole group. So just so you're aware, those are the options that you have to be able to communicate throughout this Zoom meeting today. So the agenda for today, this is what we're going to be focusing on. This is what's going to be happening for today. So we're going to talk to you about how the actual funds work, where they came from, what they're really meant for. And within that, we're also going to share a little bit what the city can and cannot do with the funds. So please remember, again, this is all COVID related. So just keeping that in the back of your mind as you're looking over these and as you're thinking about your own life experience, what the city can and cannot do. Then we're going to have time to answer any questions that you have about the funds. And there are a couple of people from this city here that are going to help me in answering your questions to make sure you understand as best as possible how the funds work. Now, at that moment, some people will also feel like sharing what the fund should be for, but that's what's going to happen after the questions. So we're going to make sure that people can ask clarifying questions, and then we're going to dive into what do you want the funds to be used for. And we're going to spend a good amount of time on that. We actually have things for you to fill out. So we record the information and have it, and we're going to put that into a document like Leilani said. And we'll dive more into that in a little bit. Then we're going to create space and time to get to hear your stories so that you can share with everyone here, share with the other people in the community about what you want the funds to go for and why. Why are these funds important? Why is it the services you want these to go? Why is that important? Why do you care about this? We want to make sure that all voices are heard. So this is going to be basically the agenda for today. So the money, where did it come from? Well, it came from the US Department. And what they did was launch the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. And through that, they were able to establish the American Rescue Plan Act. And that's ARPA. That's what Leilani was mentioning before. So that's where we're getting the funds from, is this ARPA. And ARPA has been given, there's about $350 billion that's given throughout the country to be used for COVID related stuff. Okay, so that's where the money has come from. So we're gonna get a sliver, a portion of that. How much? Well, we're getting a total of $32.3 million. The city of Oceanside, $32.3 million. Now, just so you know, about 10 million has already been allocated. And there's another 6.1 million that the city has identified certain projects to be used for. And now we have 16.2 million left. Real quick, I want to share in the chat. I just shared in the chat that these slides for people who speak Spanish, we have these slides in Spanish. So my apologies for sending it a little bit later than earlier, but that's now you have access to these slides in Spanish. So those are available to the Spanish speakers here. So the $16.2 million that are coming in, that's what's left undecided. That's still a little bit unknown. Yes, I do have the slides in English, and I'll be making sure to send that to everybody at the end for sure. So 16.2 million is where we want to hear from the city. We want to hear from the citizens and understand, what do you want that funds to go to and why? So that's what's left undecided. So here's a very broad stroke, general aspect of what the funds can be used for. Public health expenditures for mitigating COVID-19, right? So trying to stop COVID in its tracks. So that could be medical expenses, behavioral health care, public health and safety. Now, some of this the county already does, and we'll dive more into that. But that's one element, is where can we put the funds to help slow down or stop the spread of COVID-19? Negative economic impacts. So who in your world in Oceanside, friends, family, you, have been negatively impacted economically, right? So that might be workers, small businesses, impacted industries. And we'll dive more into each and every one of these. Replace lost public sector revenue. So that's what we already talked about with that 10 million. That's already been shown to, okay, this is what has been lost. Hazard pay for essential workers. So the people that were really at the greatest risks, who were on the front lines, really trying to help the city go through and run as best as they can. Those people who are on the front lines, maybe provide a little extra pay for them. And then last but not least, water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So making necessary improvements to maybe the drinking water, the broadband, and so on and so forth. So we're going to dive into each one of these, but this is where the money can be spent. Okay. Now the first one. So what does this look like? Supporting the public health response to contain and mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Well, I want to share a few different examples here so that you can get a sense. When you look at these examples, take the time and think about what else might be similar to this. So these are examples. These aren't the only things you can do by any means. This is just to help you start thinking about, where has this or similar things like this shown up in your experience of COVID in Oceanside. So for example, helping support vulnerable populations, right? So people who are out on the streets, people who have less resources, and maybe they were hit a little bit more directly than others. Vaccine programs. Maybe we need more programs to allow access to vaccines. Public communication, so letting people know more about what's going on with COVID and maybe things that they can do to help mitigate it, right? And then PPE, personal protection equipment. So maybe there's more areas or organizations or just places in the city that could use more of that. Again, these are things to help mitigate the spread of COVID. And again, these aren't the only examples out there. The question I want you to think of, where else does this show up in your life that you think is important that fund should go? So also payroll and covered expenses for public safety and similar employees, right? To those who really worked during the response to to COVID. So maybe providing some funds to people who maybe didn't get those funds, who didn't get that payment. Now, the second part, the negative economic impacts caused by this public health emergency. So again, more examples just so you can get a sense. Households facing financial insecurity. We've been hearing a lot of people talk about how they're having challenges with keeping up with rents and maintenance repairs for their mobile homes. And so that might be a big area. Job training, financial training, getting people the opportunity to maybe learn new skills and jobs because maybe they lost theirs during COVID. Helping small businesses, nonprofits. There's already some funds going there. Maybe you think that there should be more. Right? And also child care programs, after school programs, right? So getting what is necessary to make sure that our children are cared for during this time in maybe ways that they weren't. All right. Now, the second part of that is serving the hardest hit communities and families. So thinking about that. So again, more examples of that would be maybe we need more violence intervention or our public health beneficiaries. Maybe we've seen a rise in violence due to COVID. Neighborhood programs, right? So maybe helping with homeless or down payment programs. Because now people are having a hard time because they lost their jobs. And now all they need is maybe a down payment to get into a house, get into a home. Educational disparities, right? So looking at early learning services, maybe some more after school programs, some tutoring. Where is it that maybe we can help support children during a time where access to education has been a little bit harder for quite a few people, especially maybe those who haven't had internet access. And so that also goes with maybe some home visit programs. I've heard a lot of enhanced sports programming, so maybe allowing kids some sports to help them maybe reduce some of the violence that's been happening in the areas. Maybe parenting classes to help them during times of crises and support children during that time. And again, we definitely haven't heard it all. And so whatever you're thinking, whatever you're suggesting in your own mind, we want to hear about those in a little bit. So allow yourself to kind of explore what other possibilities that are similar to this that you can use the funds for. Replacing lost city revenue. So this is, like I said, there's already about 10 million that has been allocated from that. That's what was shown to have been lost revenue from the city during COVID, due to COVID. Providing premium pay to essential workers, right? So there's been a lot of workers that put their physical well-being at risk so that many of our daily needs were taken care of. And so, for example, we could provide pay for lower income workers, maybe 100% above the county or state average. And so that was actually in the ARPA itself. So this is an element of ways that we could use the funds. So who might those be? Well, for example, is firefighters, farm production, grocery stores, city maintenance, janitorial, public health and safety, lifeguards, police officers, and whomever else you can think of that was on the front lines that might be low paid, and to maybe give them a little extra something for what they've done. Now, here's the last one. This one is a little different, right? This might not be 100% all COVID directly related, but this is what they are saying that we could put the funds for. I'd say broadband infrastructure is something that the country is seeing we need more of because a lot of kids were homeschooled and things like that. So it has some ties to it. So people might want to put drinking water infrastructure, maybe water waste infrastructure, strengthening broadband access, and the last mile connections for household and businesses. So last mile connection is more about, are there areas in Oceanside where people don't have access to internet where it's just not available. Or maybe like the strengthening of the broadband access, it's very weak and we need to provide more so that kids can use it for learning opportunities, whatever it may be. But these are the general areas in which the funds can go. Now I'm going to dive a little bit into where the funds have been currently allocated. So this is a little sheet showing where some of that money is. The first half, that's already decided, right? We're getting the second half, I believe, sometime next year. And so here's where the first half is. The city has said, okay, this is where we want to put the money and funds towards, right? So sand replenishment, storm drain projects, broadband studies, homeless initiatives, neighborhood programs, ed and tourism projects, business grants, nonprofit grants, and like we said before, the lost revenue replacement. And sharing this with you so you have a sense of where funds are already being put. And so maybe for you, there might be something on here that you were going to talk about, but you feel, okay, there's enough funds going there. Or you might think, hey, we might want more money to go into some of these here. Or there's other things that this inspires you to think about where you feel the fund should go. And that's what we're trying to look at throughout all of this, is helping you get a sense of where the funds can go, and also to inspire you to think about where do you want those funds to go. And now talking a little bit about behavioral health care needs. So the county actually oversees quite a few different programs, social welfare, public mental health programs. So there's a lot that the county's already working with. So some examples might be some mental health treatment, substance misuse treatment, behavioral health services, hotlines, crisis intervention, services to promote access to health and social services. So this is just a sense of letting you know that this is where county is putting the energies throughout the whole county. So they're already providing funds for this. So right here, the county has $653 million in ARPA funds. That's what they're getting. We're getting 32.3. The county is getting 653 million. 30 million is already going to mental health services. 10 for senior and youth services, 10 into child care, 40 into direct stimulus payments, and the state pays 100% of the rental assistance programs. So just know that this is where the funding comes from for those services in Oceanside. There's a lot of it comes through the county. And so already a portion of that fund from the county are going to go into these types of things. And we want to make sure that you have as clear of a picture of what's going on with the funds so that you can share opinions that are educated, are informed. All right, so now for this part, what we'd like to do is answer any questions. Now, with this, people are going to want to provide ideas of where they want to use the funds, which I appreciate. And we have a whole section dedicated to that, a whole point of this timing of this workshop that will be for that. So this is about asking questions, clarifying questions about the funds. Where can the funds be used, and anything that maybe you didn't understand or you'd like to clarify more. So myself, Leilani, Michael, Terry will be here to help answer these questions for you. Okay, so with that, again, you can either unmute and ask a clarifying question, or if you want, you could post it in the chat. Linda, I see that you're first, so please go ahead.
Yeah, my question relates to, my recollection is that there were employees of the city that were laid off or reduced in hours of work during the pandemic, during the worst part of it. And I just wonder if all of them have returned to work, all of the jobs that we had before the pandemic, if they're all been, have come back.
Michael, would you be willing?
Yeah, we did. There was a period when we were reducing, when we weren't allowing people in places like the library and certain lobbies that are hourly extra help people, not our full-time people, had their hours reduced. To my knowledge, all of them are back to work because we're operating at full capacity and we need them.
Thank you very much. Rob?
Yeah, to follow up to Linda's question, were those employees made whole with the lost wages? How did that work? Did they have to file for unemployment? Because once you get behind, you're behind.
Yeah, folks that were, there are unbenefited folks. Actually, you know what? I want to get back to you on that because I think we did allow some. I think it's a good question and I don't want to go totally off the cuff on that because I'm not, we have different categories of employees. If it was a benefited employee, I could easily say absolutely that they received leave benefits for that, but I'm not sure. So we'll write that down and we'll look into that. Thank you, Rob.
All right. The second question was on the sand showed one. I was at some council meetings and they talked about $5 million. Is that a partial? Was the amount adjusted? What happened to that piece?
So in August, staff brought a plan to the council that we'd recommended. There's 2 rounds of funding. We received 16.1 million in May of 2021, and we will receive another 16.1 million in May of 2022. So staff brought a plan for both rounds of funding. In that plan, it included $1 million for sand in the first round and $4 million in sand for the second round. Essentially, what council told us was, for the most part, we like what we see here, but before we approve that second round, we'd like you to go out and do further community engagement above and beyond the community engagement we'd already done. So to date, only the 1 million has been appropriated to be spent.
Yeah, because I asked that one because the state just passed a replenishment bill and it looks like most of the money, I don't know because of who lobbied what, was targeted south of us. So that was the question about the sand, is where we were with it and what was happening. The last question, and I'll give space. The money for employees who are at risk, is that just city employees, or are you able to do that for, let's say, small grocery stores and the people who are dealing with, let's say, people who don't want to wear a mask, but yet these people are making minimum wage and they're on the front lines? Was it just for city employees, or do we have the ability to use that funding to support other employees that work in the city?
The ARPA does not indicate that it has to be just for city employees.
Okay.
And there are most jurisdictions who are using that money. I will say from what I've seen, at least in San Diego County, are using it. If they're choosing to do that, they're using it for city employees, but I am aware of jurisdictions that are using it for other frontline workers, as you've described.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, folks, does anyone have any other clarifying questions about how the ARPA is working? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, great. So now we'll move on. Michael, thank you so much for the support, and thank you for asking those clarifying questions, everyone. I appreciate that. So now we're going to move on to the next section of the workshop. Okay, so just bear with me as I share the screen here. Okay, and can I get a thumbs up, making sure that you can see the screen? Thumbs up. Okay, thank you. All right. So now for the next part here. This is where we get to learn from you. What do you believe the funds should be used for? Okay, what should we do with the funds? And what we're going to do is basically a discovery. So just play pretend with me, and you're now the CEO of Oceanside, okay? And with that, you've been given $16.2 million to use for the city. And it can only be used for what the ARPA says, okay? So that's the scenario in which you're at. In the sheet or on the form that we're gonna provide, you're gonna write down, what do you want the money to be used for? How much do you believe you should use it for, and why? Why is that important to you? We want to understand your why. And in this form, so afterwards, after you complete it, you're going to meet with the other CEOs at your virtual table, right? So we'll do breakout rooms. And as a group, you're going to decide what you want the funds can be going towards. It's really about getting to hear from the other people where you believe the fund should go. This is about learning from the other people in your community and understanding them and their perspective on what they think the fund should be used for. So you're going to get to learn from the other people here as well. And now a little bit of example of how it's going to look. So this is just a small example of what it can look like. This is my personal one that I filled out, but again, it doesn't have to be this way. This is just an example and to show you what it would look like. So in a moment, I'm going to put a link in the chat box that you're going to be able to open up, and it's going to take you to a Google form to fill out. And it's going to look like this. So it's going to break down each section, and then you're going to be able to write underneath the questions, what do you specifically want to spend the money on and how much? So for me, I put $1 million for small business grants, $1 million for nonprofit grants, $500,000 for job training, 1.5 million for childcare programs, 1.5 for after school programs. All right. My belief, the reason I did that is because I believe the more that we can help people do the work that they need to do, and the more that we're able to help parents with their children so that they could get back on their feet and also give some type of education or learning opportunities for kids, that's going to make the city a lot better place. So that's why I did it. Whatever you want can be completely different, and that's totally okay. This is just an example of how you would fill this out. Okay. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing this, and in the chat here, I'm going to put this first form here is the English version of the form. And just bear with me a second here. And this second one is going to be the Spanish version. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give us about 15 minutes to fill this out, maybe a couple minutes more. And so this is where we get to hear your voice, and there's still going to be time to speak about it. But we do this for a couple of reasons. We do this, one, to make sure all voices are heard. We do this too, because some people don't feel comfortable speaking up. They don't feel comfortable talking, but they feel more comfortable writing. And the third reason is we're taking what everyone says, and we're going to put it in the summary that Leilani talked about. And that's going to help us say, hey, here's where a lot of people are saying the fund should go. We're seeing a lot of people talk about this or that. So it helps us get a sense of what people want to talk about. So that's why we're doing these forms. So again, the top form is the English form. The bottom link is for the Spanish form. And if anyone has any clarifying questions or anything like that, please feel free to ask. Okay. With that, does anyone have any questions? Okay. So we're going to give people a solid 15 minutes to really work on this. Okay. And I'll give you some heads up when we're halfway there, when we have about a minute left around that, and so on and so forth. So I'll let you know when we're getting closer and closer to the end. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes to fill this out. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, but take the time to try to digest what it is that you heard, and then try to think about what has affected you, your loved ones, the people you care about. And with that, because of COVID, where do you think the fund should be allocated based off of your life experiences and the other people that you care about? All right, we're gonna have 15 minutes. So we're just gonna be here. Now, if anyone has any questions during that time, you can message me privately, right? Or you can message the group, or you can just unmute and ask. But we'll be right here. We got 15 minutes. All right, folks, what I'm also gonna send here is the slides for the English version as well. So if you want to use that to kind of go back and get inspiration, you have access to that. So I just put that right in the chat here. All right, we have a little bit less than 8 minutes left. Hey, Homer, welcome, welcome. So just so you know, what we're in the middle of right now is where everyone gets to fill out the form. So I just put it in the chat. That's the Google form that people are filling out to let us know what they want to do with the funds. So that's kind of where we're at in the meeting. You're muted.
I did that at the one here at El Corazon.
Okay, so
I
you feel
turned it
good.
in. Okay. All right.
Yeah, perfect. So we have a little over 5 minutes to allow people to get to write, and then we're going to have people get to share.
All right. You got it. I'll stick around.
Thank you for being here.
No problem.
Hi, Lola. So where we're at in the middle of the workshop, thank you for being here, is we're taking the time to hear from other people, from everyone to get to write down what it is that they want the ARPA funds to go for. So what I'll share with you in the chat is a little form that people are filling out, which might be a little challenging because you didn't get to come here or listen to the whole thing of what the ARPA funds can be for. But what I also have here, and I just sent it, is the slides. So you'll be able to have access to the slides. So maybe you can read a little bit on it and then fill out the form. And in a few minutes, we're going to get to hear from other people of what they would like to use the funds for. All right, we just got someone else coming on in, so I'm going to say the same thing. So please bear with me, folks. So right now we're in the middle of this part of the workshop where people are getting to write down in a form what it is that they'd like to use the funds for. So I'm going to, let's see here. Share that right here. And then also I'm going to share the slides. So if you want to learn more about what we got to talk about, you can also fill it out or look at the slides right here. And as I finish saying that, we got someone else new. So bear with me, folks, as I continue to repeat this a little bit. And with that, we have just a couple more minutes left. Hi, Mark. Right here, we're in this part where people are sharing a little bit of what they want to, or writing down what they want to use the funds for. So what I'm sending in the chat is the slides to help you learn a little bit about what the funds can and cannot be used. And then also a form for you to fill out to share where you think the funds should go. So we have that available for you. So in a couple minutes, you'll get to hear what other people want to use the funds for. And then if you'd like later, you can look at the slides and also fill out that form later to let us know what you think the fund should be used for. Okay, we got a little over a minute left. Whoa, I don't know what is going on there. I'm sorry, folks. So I'm going to remove that person. Apologize about that, folks. All right, folks, just a few more seconds.
Can we get a copy of our answers? Normally, I just assumed it would ask me if I wanted a copy of it, but when I did the submission, it didn't let me.
It was supposed to be set up where it does, but I'll make sure that you can get a copy of it.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I went pretty fast, so I'm sure the English teachers in the room will come after me.
I think you'll be all right. So type in yes if you feel like you need another minute, which is totally okay. And Rob, if you can, privately message me your email and I'll make sure that you get that.
Absolutely.
And then maybe a couple of sentences of what your first answer might have looked like so I know exactly which one is yours.
Oh, okay. Let me get to the sheet.
Okay. right.
Okay, which I don't know how to do that.
Right. So that's okay. That's why I'll take care of it. So again, just send me your email, a couple of sentences of what it looked like, and I'll make sure you get a copy. What I set it up is so that you're supposed to be able to submit and then see your responses, but I guess for some reason it didn't do that. All right, folks. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the next part of this. And basically, we want to hear from you all. So since we don't really have a big group here, what I'd like us to do then is just take the time and for us to get to share what it is that you all got to write down. Now, with this, I just want to kind of put out a couple of things. One, you can share as much or as little as you like. Okay, so know that. The second part is this is a place for where we get to come from a place of understanding and curiosity. So I'm going to ask that you defer judgment, right? This isn't a place where we want to place any judgment on anyone's ideas. No idea is less than, no idea is better than. It's just, these are the different perspectives and these are the different opinions. And so that's all we're going to get to hear. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. And again, please no judgment, come from a place of curiosity, and we get to work to understand what are the things that are important to the other people that live in this city with you. Okay. So with that, who would be willing to go first and share about what it is that they wrote? Linda, I saw Linda's hand first. Please share with us.
Well, you know, on the first one, on the COVID mitigation efforts, I read recently that Oceanside has a pretty low vaccination rate, and that a lot of specific communities, and especially communities of color, are not getting vaccinated to the extent that the white community, for example. And so I suggest that we need some kind of community outreach for education purposes and to get people, you know, so they understand the need for the vaccination. Now, I worked for a county vaccination clinic for a while, and you know, the vaccines are available. The county's really working hard, but I think maybe the problem would be a community, you know, like neighbor to neighbor would be a better way to do it than, say, from a county or public health department standpoint.
Got it. Great. Thank you for that. Anything else on that you'd like to share? Okay. Rob, please.
Well, I'll give two. One is pretty much similar to what Linda was just saying, in that I allocated a significant amount of funding for the smaller nonprofits that don't have the capacity to sit there and fight for the grants and everything, and are not the healthcare providers, but they can get into those communities and communicate not just about the vaccines, because two of the lowest census tracts in the county for vaccinations are in Oceanside. So it's not like it's not needed. And so I would allocate funding for those nonprofits to help them build capacity to do the outreach, recruitment, training, providing food, whatever it takes in that community to talk to people, not just about being vaccinated, but how to deal with the pandemic. The other place that I thought funding should go to, you know, they have a thing about broadband, but now the technology is where you can do wireless broadband for about a third of the price of fiber. And so this gives us an opportunity around, let's say, a low income school, a mile radius for, say, I think it's $2.5–3 million. And then you can also, because you have funding available for small business development, now I can do a small business incubator around fees and how to run that type of business. So the city can set parameters on who gets free broadband. Okay, they got it. Then we can work on the technologies, computers and other things they need. But also now I'm teaching business skills to people from that community, have a small business there collecting the revenue, because not everyone is going to fit into the low income bracket and get free broadband, but they can get it for cheaper than they're paying these large broadband companies. So I think a lot of it is the broadband is there, but you use it as an economic development tool and a community development tool and an education development tool, all in the same place. So I would allocate somewhere in the area of $4 to $6 million for that.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else that you identify that you feel is really important for the community to put the funds towards?
Yeah, the other one I put down was for funding, I think $2 million for those small businesses who are on the front lines who can't compete with the larger ones that have the funding, so that their employees, because they're going to be scrambling for employees as well because of the crunch in the job market. But if I can have hazard pay for the 20 employee or less small business, what that does is that now I'm supporting my mom and pop shops who are also in the community, know the residents, and keep them alive and well, so they don't go to just the larger businesses.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. All right, who's up next? Who else wants to share a little bit of what they wrote and why that's important to them? Or go ahead, Nancy.
Yes. So although I work for Vista Community Clinic, I am an Oceanside resident. And something that I think is really important is housing. I know housing is very important. It's one of the first things that are needed in order to improve someone's health, and stable housing for that included. But if there was any kind of funds that could go to that, where it's public housing ran by the Public Housing Authority, that way, if they were to have some kind of like smoke-free housing as something like a very comprehensive, cohesive, smoke-free environment, that would be great. And the reason why I say this is because I do work with a lot of community members that I get calls from that say, like, I am dealing with this chronic health condition, or I have this child who I have to take them consistently to Rady's because they have respiratory issues, and they're being affected by the secondhand smoke that's coming into my home. And I can't just get up and leave, because this housing that I'm in, this is what I can afford. This is how I can keep a roof over my head and my kids and anybody else who depends on them. So I said that that would be something great if we could put some funds with, in the city of Oceanside to be able to provide a safe housing environment for our families.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Was there anything else, Nancy, you also felt was important, or that was the main one for you?
That was the main one for me. I did, and then you'll see I have some other ones in there, but I want to give other people a chance.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. Kelly, please.
Sorry. Hi. I put on my sheet that I was to get money allocated to independent contractors. These are our artist community, artists, people who are home caregivers, people who mostly work for themselves, people who have are trying to start their own businesses because they were working in education and now they feel like they want to shift because the climate X, Y, and Z. And not only that, be able to allot some of those funds specifically to people who write grants, and also teach artists and independent contractors about grant writing. Let there be money allotted for a grant writer and a grant instruction, and pay these people, small business owners and people who to attend these classes. I do like that financial literacy part, and also have them being encouraged to also pay them to attend. A lot of our artists who really keep things beautiful and joyful around here, they really are struggling. And independent contractors like writers and such who don't work for, there's no really newspapers really anymore, but don't work for a publication. They work on their own as independent, and they've taken a huge hit. So I wrote on there that some money be allocated for that. And also, I also wrote down housing. I didn't write it on that sheet, but yes, but the idea is if you give to some of these independent contractors and small business owners, want to echo what Rob was saying, that they can then use it for housing. And there's just to reiterate, there's a demographic that keeps getting missed because they make more money. They stay just above $1,000 of the line of what they call poverty, or that, but they don't have that. So somehow capture that population that's not getting the funds. And these are our artists, independent contractors and writers, home care aides and givers who work like that, child care givers as well. So that was my idea.
Thank you for that share. Thank you for letting us know, Kelly. I appreciate that. And so some people came in a little bit later and you didn't get to fill out the form, and that's okay. Based off of what you're hearing, is there anything that you would like to share about how maybe you, your friends or family have been affected by COVID? And what would you like to see the funds go to? Anyone else be willing to share?
I got in late into the meeting. Hello, my name is Lola, and I live here in Oceanside. And I think one of the things, the way that I've seen, the way COVID has affected our community, and it's just seeing the elderly, especially those who don't have family members. They need assistance. So I don't know exactly where. I think maybe Vista Community Clinic or maybe some other organization that I don't know. I know Vista Community Clinic, but I wish there would be more resources for these people that can provide maybe rights to the elderly, specifically to the elderly, and food, and to have maybe caregivers that can't attend to the needs of the elderly, to purchase groceries, to even to be there to translate. There's a lot of need that I see based on what I experience within the community. And I think that if we can provide some services for the elderly, along with housing, and also more information as to what rights to the elderly have, I think that will be something that we can have. Definitely the low income housing is much needed in Oceanside because everything just keeps going up. That rents, the housing, everything is going up. And I feel like people are just being pushed away from our beautiful community here in Oceanside. And I think that we need more advocacy towards that.
Thank you.
I don't know if I hit the point. I came in really late, so I apologize for that. So
No apology needed. I'm first off glad you're here and being brave enough and willing enough to share your perspective, even if you didn't get the whole story. So thank you for having that courage. Is there anything else that your heart connects to that you feel you've seen COVID has had an impact on that you feel funds should go to?
I do think there's a lot of misconceptions based on the vaccines, and I don't know what we can do to bring more clarity and more transparency so that those people who are on the fence wanting to be vaccinated can really understand that there's nothing to fear. But I think there needs to be just more transparency. I don't know how will we go about that. It's just a concern that I see within my surroundings.
Absolutely.
Especially with the young adults, especially with young adults.
Thank you.
Another thing, if I might say, one
Keep
of my
it going.
concerns that I see, just driving down Coast Highway, I see so many breweries, so many places where people are maskless, and I really am concerned about that. So so I mean, I want to keep our business open, and I think we should keep them open, but where is the line, you know? And so that's one of my greatest concerns, because obviously, you know, we are living with the COVID era, and so I don't know what we can do, and maybe I'm just throwing this out there just so that everyone else could hear it, and maybe their ideas would just, we can connect something and create something.
That would be
Thank you.
wonderful. Yeah. Love the spirit. Thank you. And with that, Lola, if you would be willing, we also have it here, and I'll be able to take in. But I would love for you, if you can, not this moment, at when we're done here, you could take just a little time and fill out the form so that you can really get to articulate the words that you want across, and make sure we have exactly how you want to articulate it, and allowing yourself a little time to process. So I put the link in the chat for you. So if you can later take the time to really get to talk more about exactly what you said. I think everything you said would be absolutely valid under what we can do for the funds. And it's okay if you even say some things that might be gray and borderline. The city will see if they can do those things. And then I also put in the slides as well. So you have the slides to kind of look at, and then you have the form so that you can really get the words how you want them articulated, and if any other thoughts come. Right. Thank you for that, Lola.
I know you have them here in the chat, but are those forms also available on the city's website somewhere?
I know that they have surveys available. Michael, Leilani, do you know more, or Tammy, do you know more about that? From what I understand, the surveys are available. Are they still available?
So this is Leilani. Yes, we are working to get the same similar format that you all participated in up on our website to do.
Thank
They
you.
are not currently up there. If you provide us with your email address, I'll put in my email address in the chat so that you all have that, and we can send that out to you.
My thinking is I can then forward it out to the others, the community. That was my thinking. So yes, I will email you, Lola, and thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, for that brilliant thinking. Okay, what else, folks? What else maybe you'd like to share a little bit more about, or maybe you already spoke, but there's more that you'd like to share about what you feel the funds can be used for? Because in this, we're getting to hear each other's perspective and maybe see things that we didn't think about before. And so in this conversation, we're getting to expand our awareness of what's going on in the city. So with that, is there anything else that anyone would like to share about what they feel their experiences with friends and family and how COVID has affected?
I do have another thing to add.
Please.
I would say behavioral health, any kind of therapy and this is going to be more towards the schools. The pandemic has hit our families really hard with a lot of family loss, due to, passing away from COVID, or perhaps it's mom and dad lost a job, or someone in their family who used to be a provider is no longer a provider. So although these our kids aren't necessarily being directly impacted, they're probably indirectly impacted. So now they are carrying on the stressors of their loved ones. And sometimes us as parents, we can't communicate well enough, or maybe we can't offer the words or lend that lending ear to our kids. So having someone perhaps outside of school that has seen it or knows that something is happening within that child's home, they hear like, oh, so-and-so lost a family member, or, kids talk, they open up and they share what's going on at home. They need that extra support, especially if they can't get it at home. So if funds can go to that, to offer that kind of support, for our kids in Oceanside, from kinder all the way throughout high school, that would be real nice. And I know there's nonprofit agencies that have that skill set and have professionals that can help support that.
Thank you, Nancy. Linda.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I live in Oceana, the original Oceana on the top of the hill. And it just seems like everywhere you turn, the prices of food's going up, and they're raising our HOA dues, and everything, gas is out of this world. And it's really troublesome, especially if you're a senior and you have your ability to raise your income is rather limited. So and then there's the issue that all through the pandemic, the grocery stores stayed open, and grocery workers, I would say, don't make very much money. And also the hospitals, so these are the essential workers, and most of them weren't paid any hazard pay or anything like that. So I think they deserve something. And I'm just wondering if there isn't some way to subsidize, for example, in the food industry, in food services, subsidize the workers in such a way that would make the restaurants and stores more, I don't know, this is kind of crazy thinking, but more attractive, and people, because they're short-staffed, and getting good staff. So maybe we could help with the employment, getting enough workers, plus rewarding essential workers.
Right. So. Absolutely. Thank you.
The one area I would say that has been pretty disturbing to me from what I see that the city has been doing or has been promoting, they use the economic development argument to basically fully subsidize downtown. Whether it is, and don't get me wrong, I believe we gotta have businesses. I believe, it ought to be competitive, but don't tell me we need to support them for that, but yet we don't have funding in the rest of the city for those very same things that everybody on this meeting has been talking about. Essential workers, healthcare, mental health services, talking about broadband and all of that. So if we're going to take part of what they're saying, then I would just ask the city to not be greedy. I'm just gonna put it out there. Don't be greedy. Share it, because that's everyone's tax dollars that we're trying to spend. Because this whole thing, the believing that downtown needs all of this money because of tourism. I don't know if you've been down there lately, but I went down there and couldn't even get, I had a 2-hour wait for a place I need to go. If you got a 2-hour wait, then you're probably doing okay. So what about in the valley? What about by the back gate? What about these other communities and those stores and those businesses and those children and those families? That's where you're more likely to have multi-generational families staying in a house where the kids can't get vaccinated. And I'm still afraid for what's happening with grandma and grandpa. So I think a lot of it is, don't say I'm trying to be compassionate when you're compassionate in your own head and everybody else is like, well, that doesn't look like compassion to me. So for me is, let us begin to look at the city as a whole, because if we don't address those needs in the communities that have needs, it's going to cost us more, whether it is law enforcement, where it's extra paramedic stops with the firefighters, where it is homelessness, all of those, it all works together, and we can't take everything for downtown and expect the rest of the city to survive. It's not going to work. So that's the part that's kind of been frustrating to me, because that's what I see. Now I could be wrong, but I doubt it. That's what I see. So help me out with that one. And I appreciate what people have been coming up with, because as you can tell, the comments have been about the community. it's like, how do we make our community better? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Kelly.
Yes, I just wanted to echo on what Rob said, and that also, and maybe this is getting ahead of the game here. When we do get the funds, and yes, we're going to go ahead and give it to everyone, who makes that decision? Is it the city council? Like, we receive these funds and then they say where it goes to, is my first question. The other thing is more of a statement, is that about what one of the people on here was saying. You have community roots farms, you have a lot of these farm to table. It's a big push for Oceanside to do this anyway. If there could be, that's already in place, that they have people delivering, that maybe we could also encourage these funds to continue to do that, because it would help the farmers out to have programs, so you don't have to go to the grocery store. They already established these, and getting fresh fruits and vegetables into the home. Maybe if we had some kind of marketing plan to build that up as well. And lastly, I just want to give a big shout out to Granny's World, who is that Homer's ahead of, that's doing that kind of work for our seniors. And it would be awesome to throw a couple of million Granny World's way. Just saying.
Love the shout out. Thank you for that. So going on to your question, and this is what I'm understanding of it. We have several of these workshops, right? So this is the fourth. We have one more in person. And the reason we have those forums is because not everyone feels comfortable speaking. So we want to make sure that that all voices are heard. And that's an easier way to do that, is by typing things out and writing it out. We're taking that information, we're going to put it together, and then we're going to start seeing what are the themes and trends that are emerging. Okay, so we're saying a large percentage of people who filled out this form are saying, this is important and here's why. And then another portion are saying this and here's why. So that, along with multiple elements of data, so there's other surveys, there's other areas where the city's connecting with the community to learn more about what they want. They're going to different events and things like that to also hear from the community of what do you want to do with these funds. So there's these surveys plus different bits of like information gathering from the city, putting all that together, and then they're going to present it to the mayor and to the council. And then the council will be able to make a decision of where to allocate the rest of the funds based off of that. So that's the process in which that's going to work. So did that answer your question?
I think it did. So in other words, we could say, yeah, let's give it to, this particular Democratic, the seniors and this, but ultimately the council could take this information and not do anything with it. I mean, it would be their decision.
From my understanding, they're the ones who actually put this in place because they really want to understand. There's already money that has been allocated, right? So that first half, so that's them like from their perspective of, hey, this is what the city really needs. And so there's already a pretty large portion that's allocated and that they saw, hey, this is what we need. Their intent is to really understand more about, for this second half, what do the citizens really want to do with it? And that's where they're going to really try to incorporate those decisions. Most likely, definitely not every idea is going to be presented, but my belief and what I'm understanding from them, and I really strongly, at the end of the day, you can't exactly always predict, but they're really working to understand what do the citizens want and make decisions based off of that. Michael, Leilani, does anyone have anything else to add on to that? Because I believe that's my pretty straightforward understanding.
No, that's the direction that we received from council, was they appropriated the first tranche of funding that came in, the 16.1 million. There's another tranche coming in, and they said before we decide specifically what we want to do with that, we want to go out and seek community feedback.
Right.
So we saw, the other thing is to point out, it was, there's all kinds of ways to get community feedback. We did do a survey that's still actually active and people can still take it. And that was one of the the places that we went to make a recommendation to council. Second thing that we looked at was the rules. And as you've already described, and we don't need to go back through that, they're fairly restrictive on what they can be used for. And the third thing that we looked at was past council direction. What are the priorities of council, you know, and that's how we would, how we came about that recommendation. And then it's just a recommendation, council. It's totally up to council to move the lever here and bring the lever down here, et cetera. So, and they did that. For instance, they, you know, staff had recommended in the first tranche $350,000 for nonprofits, and council said, no, we'd like to see $1 million for that. So we made it $1 million.
Thank you, Michael. Did that answer your question, Kelly?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, anyone have anything else that they'd like to share to the other members of the community about what's been going on for them, their friends, their family of COVID, and what they would like to see these funds for? Okay. All right, well then with that, just so you're aware, we said it, but just to reiterate again, we still have one more in-person workshop. So let people know about that if they haven't gone to any of these. And know that after that, we're gonna compile all the information, put it in an executive summary. And again, that'll be one of the elements that'll be shared with the city council. So again, we're doing this so that people's voices can be heard and considered. And so that's why we're doing this. I also want to say thank you all so much for being willing to be vulnerable, for being willing to work to support your community in whatever way you can, and for being a voice for the other people who maybe weren't here. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here and taking your time, your valuable time, to let the city know where you want to use the funds to help people, to help all of those that were affected by COVID. So again, thank you all so much. I'll be here for another couple minutes if anyone has any other clarifying questions or something else that they want to bring up. But that's all, folks, as Porky Pig once said, the great Porky Pig.
Thank you all for doing this, man.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. Okay, so like I said, I'll be here for another couple minutes. If anyone wants to chit chat, you know, any good jokes, I got a good one if anyone wants. So what did the envelope say to the stamp? Stick with me and we'll go places. Fantastic. One of my favorite dad jokes ever.
So COVID has been keeping you from getting out much. Is what I got from that joke.
Absolutely.
That was good, Rob. That was good.
Just brushing up on my dad jokes.
Hey, you got to tell them and be proud, man. You got to.
Absolutely. I stand strong.
Hey, the broadband proposal. I know those went in without names, but I have a lot more information about that. It's if we really want to do this in the city, particularly around the schools that don't have it, because I hear some of the kids fighting with these hot spots and doing all that. And you're talking within a couple of months, it's wireless, it's not fiber. The technology has just gotten so much better now that and it's about a third of the price of fiber. So yeah, it's again, if anyone wants to discuss it, just give me a call. We work with the folks who do it. It's it started out as just a rural application, and then they realized because of the fact that it was wireless, and the cities own a lot of the right-of-ways, then urban areas benefited even more than the rural areas because you could actually get it where you needed it and cover more people in a much shorter distance. It's just, I'm excited about it, man. It's a really cool thing because if these students aren't on it, it's not going to happen. Small businesses need it now for everything. So it's just one of those things that we can actually make a difference at a third of the price.
Right. That's incredible. That's kind of the beauty of these workshops too. I've heard a couple of incredible technology that can be potentially used. In one workshop, there was a gentleman talking about how I'm very ignorant of it, so I'm going to be butchering it. But the general essence of it was basically there are things that's been used in previous countries that a university, a famous university, really honed in, and they put these kind of like just metal things in the air in places where there's a lot of density of fog. Super cheap to set up. You then tie a little, and it collects the fog automatically, and you tie up just a little bit of electricity, and then it collects 4 times as much clean water. So that's why one of the reasons why I'm so grateful for these workshops, getting to hear all these things. So
yeah, there's some interesting technologies coming out around water, and also your hydrogen fuel cell technology for power. The price points are getting close. It's 3 times as much as solar, but you can run it 24 hours a day. So it's pretty much gotten to a point to where you can start using it. So there's just a lot. I'm really into, I spent 30 plus, actually 31 and another 6. So 37 years in the nuclear industry. So I got really interested in what's next. And it's the other things, man. Sustainability is real, and we need to really hone in on it. So
double down.
That's it. Look, man, I will be chatting about this all night.
All right.
I gotta go. Leilani, see ya. We gotta catch up.
All right, take care.
All right, take care.
Everyone else, we're all set.
You're so welcome. See you guys.
Bye. Yep, we have the recording. Leilani, is there anything else for you?
No, not for me. I saw your Google Docs. I'll get with you, Michael. I'm trying to figure out how to kind of work the Google Docs survey with some of your PowerPoints. So that's what we're kind of hung up on, because people really do like the discovery exercise. We keep hearing over and over again that they want to do that. So trying to figure out how to kind of meld the two together and playing with it right now. So and then,
we can, like I said earlier, we can set up a meeting and we could work on that together and try to make it work for what it is, so that we can take time so I could better understand the more of what it is that you want it to be, so we can figure that out together.
Sure. Okay. Sounds good. And Jesus, I think I did forward your information or talk to Terry Gorman Brown. I don't know if she's still here,